attack will expire in 2010. It won't take an act of Congress for it to expire. It's going to expire. If you believe the Democrats are going to reenact or extend those tax cuts, then you're still very naive in that pre-06 time. You're going to get tax increases. You're going to get what they have cap and trade, which is going to be 50% increase minimum in electricity, natural gas, and other fuels that you have to go forward. You're going to get and that I think can be done without the Congress enacting it. I think that they have set up the EPA that it's going to move forward without even an enactment. This new president seems like that sort of thing, a situation where you administrate laws rather than enact laws through a Congress. I think you'll have some of the things that will happen in the health care, maybe be in the same direction. And so it's entirely possible that a year from now, we could be in a much worse economic situation than what's evolving today. And that, I think, we need to be very vocal about. The recent Tea Parties were not the product of the Republican Party. There were a lot of Republicans involved. There were a lot of us who were interested in urge people to go. I think you're going to have more of that in the future. But it's people who are really saying to through frustration, we do not want a dictatorship. We do not want a situation where the Census Bureau is controlled by the administration and the work with illegal immigrants is going to be controlled by the administration, so that we have a 12 million voting block for 2010 or 2012 ready-made. We want to see a country that you elect representation, they stand up and they represent you, that you have a direction that mimics what the people want, rather than a small fraction that's gotten control of Congress and drive it in an area left of Lenin. You want to have a country that where our traditions are not all thrown overboard in a single year or two, and we try these new experiments. Lotsoquits are really warmed over for the last 40 years and are not real. They've been failed experiments with have been tried locally. If you want to see, for instance, a lot of the experiments that you see in pilot work in America, go to Washington, D.C., which over the years has been the most liberal local government, where they are trying to crush charter schools and have the worst and the highest per capita expenditure in education of any part of the United States and the worst performance in the United States. You see, there's 100% gun control. No one can have a gun under any circumstances other than law enforcement in D.C., and yet it was the highest murder capita in the world by people with guns illegally. All the things that they're trying to push down the road, you can see a lot of that in the microcosm in Washington, D.C., how it's performed. Here's a good example, I think, we want to see it. What we're evolving in, you can see it's been tried either in this country in smaller examples or in foreign countries in larger examples. In most cases, it has been disastrous. If you put all those disasters together at one time, it's going to be a wrenching change for this country. The change that's being recommended and has been promised by this administration, I think is not the change that the Americans are going to be happy with, that their children are going to be happy with. It's a situation where I put almost $5 trillion in place of future debt on the United States, and then I have the insulting audacity to come for you and say, in the next 3 years, we're going to cut $100 million. We're really lined up, we're going to do our job. It is that kind of audacity, and I think that will keep moving our country in a further direction down. You, as Republicans, and this is a base organization because we believe in the vote and freedom. We don't believe in dictatorships. We believe in grassroots organizations like this, and this is the beginning, where we elect our county leaders who elected you, and your participation brought you here as delegates in the district. You elect your district leaders, then you go on to elect your state leaders as you become the delegates and correspondents of the national. Then we pick candidates through primary system. Do not, and let us not try to narrow ourselves, which is what you see the White House is trying to do today. The whole cabinet, they're giving a speech and they come out and give it. They picked a very, very minimum position of the party and say, oh, they're all racist, they're all this, they're all that. And narrow it down so that you won't be an effective party to change and bring back America. And that's what we've got to watch in the future. We've got to be sure that our party is broad, that brings in, accepts people, not changing your basic philosophy, your character, are the essentials of our stand. But saying in approaching cure for problems, there can be more than one solution. And you may have an idea, I may have an idea, another may have an idea. We want to welcome all that. We're not changing the basic principles of our stance or the character of this country, but we want to welcome anyone who comes in our fold to contribute to that change. If we can do that, I think we can bring back America. It's always hard. If you look back to the time where we were in the early 90s, when we changed the Congress for the first time in almost 50 years, almost 60 years of any consistent for any number of years. In '94, we cut the budget $50 billion. Before it was over, we had reduced the deficit some $600 billion at a time when the deficit was only about $6 trillion, $5 to $6 trillion. It was coming down substantially. What I'm saying is, it was hard to do. We had to drag Bill Clinton down the street before we got welfare reform. Until we got welfare reform, we couldn't cut the budget. We had to do a number of things to cut the expenses and cut taxes, and force him into doing that. It was hard work. It can be done again, but it's getting harder and harder as the other side tries to align this country into a more static position. It's been a pleasure being with you today, and thank you very much.